Welcome to another episode of GSP, the Good Sugar Podcast. I am Ralph Sutton. Marcus Antebi is with me. Where it looks like for some reason there's an ambulance parking in the living room.
Don't talk about my background, okay?
What's going on with that?
Yeah, background and
is it Christmas lights? What am I looking at?
Nothing is happening in the background. I'm not even going to talk about it. If you want to see it, go to our YouTube channel and put it on. And I think what we have to do right away is tell the audience what this show is about. And first of all, tell everybody who's on our show today. We're both really excited.
All right, so I want to say this really quickly. The show in general is a health show, a wellness show, a guide to hopefully becoming a little bit better. It started with me trying to get into a better headspace.
And you were in a really bad spot before the show. You were tell us how bad
really
it got.
Well said, Marcus. Really clear and concise. Thank you for interrupting me.
How bad was your life before the show?
I would just say, look, since this show started, I've lost about 75 pounds.
Wow.
I'm running my 4th half marathon tomorrow as we're taping this, and I'm doing my first official one in February. And a lot of this is like when we listen to other health and wellness shows, they're a little hokey and goofy, and they're a little too gong kind of nonsense.
That's why they sell.
And so we try to be a little bit more everyman kind of stuff, right? And talking to people and bringing our own New Yorker mindsets that we have to talking to these people.
We're angry yogis. We're angry gurus. Yeah. We say fuck, shit, piss, and corruption.
Corruption.
That's right. So you could count on us.
I will say this. So there's a woman we're about to have on the show. Her first movie was an international sensation called Lipstick, right? Then she was in a movie with Woody Allen called Manhattan that she was nominated for an award for as well, I think for both those movies. Everyone, I think 40 and over or 35 and older, definitely know her from the movie Star 80. She is, which I will get into later.
With Eric Roberts. Epic.
With Eric Roberts as well. She is a descendant and perhaps has one of the most recognizable last names of American culture, second to Kennedy, maybe. That's fair enough, right?
And only third to the name Sutton.
We'll go Trump. Then no, I'm just kidding. Anyway, so let's just bring her on right now. It's amazing. Advocate, activist, author, actor. I mean, for God's sakes, who doesn't know this woman? It is Mariel Hemingway. Thank you so much for coming on.
I can't even believe it.
Thank you for having me.
I want to tell you something first. This is a little bit of how stupid I am, right? I know you as an actress, right? Of course. I mean, who doesn't know from Manhattan, from Star 80, from The Roseanne, from Crossing Jordan? I mean, you could list countless movies and shows you've been in. And this is how stupid I am. Never made the connection that you're Ernest Hemingway's granddaughter. How stupid am I? I just thought you had a cool last name. What do I know?
It's kind of nice for me because usually that's the first connection people make. like I've never done anything else. So it's fine. Whatever. You're not stupid. Nobody's stupid.
Well, trust me, you don't know me that well. I am stupid. Now, while we're taping this to start this off, tomorrow you're hosting an online event called Forever Young with, I'm going to screw up the name, Biet Simkin. Is that right?
Actually, it's not happening tomorrow. It is, when is it happening?
It said
it's
December.
Happening in January. We moved it to January because we thought it was like a better, setup for, changing your health.
All right, even better then.
How everybody
I guess
starts January. And
once you make it through, I look in this industry that after Thanksgiving, the world is gone until like this January 8th or something. Nobody's doing anything.
It's so insane to try to get business done or anything completed during this time. It's absurd. It's like,
it's crazy. So in watching a lot of the stuff in the last few days, one of the words that keeps jumping up in anything I've seen with you is the word balance, right? So finding balance in your life. And I know it's a sensitive topic, but you come from a family of severe, I would say, I don't know how you'd put it, mental anguish or in illness or whatever. I mean, a lot of people including your grandfather famously and whatnot, have had committed suicide, and it's been a part of your life for your entire life. You can't avoid it. So you had to figure out a way, knowing that background, to find balance and happiness and, some sort of understanding of the world. Is that a fair way to look at this?
Absolutely. I come from an amazing family, as you now know, but there was a tremendous amount of mental illness, a massive amount of addiction, alcohol, drugs, this, that, and the other thing. So I spent a lot of my life being fearful that I was going to wake up one day and just be like completely crazy and not be able to handle my life. But my focus in life has always been on like, how can I be healthier? What can I do, through how I eat, whether I exercise, all the things that I do in my life are around creating balance in my brain. But that comes through everything you do. It's not, it's not one thing. And
Right.
For me, it's not like, oh, there's a pill out there. I think that not that some people don't need to take medication.
Right, of course.
That's fine. But I think that we need to be a part of the solution. I think one of the problems is that people sort of don't want to take responsibility for their own health.
Right.
And it's not just physical. It's not just about it's about all the habits that you have. I don't know.
It's funny that
balance is great.
In the same respect of how there are certainly people that need a pill for some sort of mental issue, most people are looking at it as a quick fix. And in the same world of diet, people look at diet as, oh, I'm going to be this, or I'm going to be intermittent faster, as opposed to no, diet as in eat healthy and change the way you eat, make that part of it. Don't look, both of them are what's my quick fix, as opposed to what's the new way of looking at my life. And I think one of them, which I did mainly because of Marcus. Marcus comes from a much more spiritual, holistic, background than I.
Please don't.
Yeah, but I hate the words, but I don't know how else to put it. But
that sounded terrible. Oh my God.
He's the one that kind of, on the journey of this show, which we started a year or so ago, I've lost over 70 pounds now, right?
Wow.
Eating much better. I meditate every day. I do yoga every other day. I run 30 miles a week almost now. So all of it, obviously, they all interconnect and interweave. The two that I struggled with the most, that I know are big parts of your life, big part of Marcus's life, which is where I think you two can get on a conversation here, is in the yoga and in the meditation.
Yeah.
And these are two pillars of what you do, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think of yoga as something that you can do in anything that you do. So if you have a yogic attitude towards any kind of movement, it changes the way that movement is in your body and your mind and your spirit. I mean, because when you have a connection to movement that is about breath, then it really doesn't matter if you're doing yoga asana or out in a walk in the forest, as long as that mindset is, I am connecting with breath and I'm also connecting with what's around me. Because being present, and I'm sure, Marcus, you get this, from meditation, being present in anything you do changes the dynamic of what you do. And it gives it that much more power in changing your body and your mind.
What's funny is
it's so profound.
What you say, it's almost verbatim Marcus, but Marcus puts it in with relation to meditation. Like you always say, Marcus, the meditation could be when you're running. The meditation could be anywhere, as long as you're present of mind. And I guess both of them have similar paths. Is that fair to say, Marcus?
Well, I think it's when a person starts to open up to this, you don't really have to explain it too much. So we all kind of then end up saying the same thing. There's a moment in a person's life, hopefully, and some people are lucky, they never lose it from the time they're children. They don't have the distractions and the disruptions that ordinary people have. But at a certain point of our lives, when you've been practicing something, let's say we started yoga because I wanted to be behind all the pretty girls when they were doing a posture, nonsense. You're in your 20s, right? You just keep showing up to it. And next thing you know, you wake up and you're 50 and you start to realize what this thing is doing to me. And I think that what Mariel said very well is that, and it's actually something that's very difficult to teach, trying to teach this to children all the time, is the idea of what is the purpose of meditation? What is it? And why is yoga and meditation oftentimes connected to each other? What does yoga have to do with meditation? And I think that today, more so than any other time that I've been a practitioner of all different types of physical exercises and practices, the conversation is much more wide open because probably of social media. And I think the beauty in that is that you don't have to wait until you're 40, 50, 60 to open your consciousness, which is something that's normally happening. You can find it in your 20s and say, you know what, let me not be a schmuck my entire life and be
speak
half
for yourself.
conscious.
I'm very confident being a schmuck my entire life.
And I'll let Mariel speak, but I love to come back to the layman's definition of meditation, to demystify it and to put it in a perspective that a person who doesn't meditate can say, oh, that's what it is? That's so easy. Why didn't I know that before?
Well, I do think there is that from the layman here who always looks at meditation as hocus pocus. And
you're a lame man, not a layman.
Great play on words. Hilarious comedy. But the idea always was, I got to sit in a, you can't say Indian style anymore. What do you call it now? You can
say Indian.
They say that right? You can't say that. They think it's crisscross.
You could say, if you want to be correct, you can say in a far Eastern Indian
the leg cross, sit up, and then put your arms out like this, and then be silent for 45 minutes. That's what the original purpose is, the perspective. What I thought of, and what most people think.
Wait. No. And I teach a lot of meditation, as you do, Marcus. But I always say, look, if start with 2 minutes, add a minute a week.
I agree. That's what I mean.
And the truth of the matter is, it's not about having no thoughts. It's not about anything. It's about stillness. It's about taking time to be quiet and listen to the thoughts that come in and let them come and let them go, and don't make a judgment about them. They're gonna come. You're gonna have lots of retarded thoughts. Excuse me.
You can say that. You can say that.
You can't say that these days.
Yeah, you can. You can.
Use that word anymore. But anyway, and it's that. And meditation is and asana. My opinion on asana, yoga, why you do yoga is because it was originally designed to calm the mind. Because our mind is so overactive, the brain, we're overthinking. Our egos
thank God,
are involved.
and thank God for that.
Yeah. Let me ask you this.
It's serious. I would say, Ralph, is that this meditation was brought here to a Western thinking mind, very caught up in materialism and distracted from nature and the reverence of nature, taking on very different purposes for life. And so meditation is really simply an intellectual practice where a person recognizes that all their problems and all their suffering is caused in their mind, and they want to learn how to relax, and they want to learn how to watch the thoughts rise. And over time, they have faith and belief, because someone's telling them it's true, that they'll be able to control the thoughts that come through their mind, and they'll be able to redirect them. That's
what if it's someone like me that has 3 thoughts a week? Is that going to be a problem?
Well, you know what? You're already a master then.
All right, fine. Let me ask you this. Maybe, and I apologize if this comes off as a douchey statement, a question. I really do apologize. You come from, as you said, a history with a family that had, lost several people to suicide. How much of it, knowing all of them in your life, do you feel could have been avoided if they had, or, the ability to meditate, to eat right, to focus? Or do you think it was, like we said at the top of the show, related to mental illness, where it was not fixable through that, where they needed medical attention?
And first of all,
and I apologize if that comes off like an insincere question.
No, it's not a douchey question at all. It's a very important question, and it's one that I address quite often. I think if my grandfather had been given an opportunity to do that, to do a kind of more mindful life, it would have changed that dynamic. He lived in a different time, all the drinking, the hard living. It was a persona that he had created. It was also covering up pain.
Right.
And there was no knowledge about, like, oh, well, he didn't have the Eastern kind of understanding. His writing was therapy for him, obviously. So he would have been different. But I also don't believe, even if you need medication, you also need to be mindful of everything that you do. You need to eat well, you need to get sunshine, you need to create a world where if you need medication, you probably need less medication because you're taking responsibility for the actions in your life.
Right.
So my thing is, like, it's not, there's not one solution. Everybody has different solutions to find their own
we're all
balance.
wired differently, of course. I get that.
I would say,
all have
but there are some universal truths. We all need to not eat processed food. We all need to not drink
100%.
excessively, but it's just a matter of fine tuning it. I watched you, and I'm not sure if is life partner the right term? It's not a husband yet, right? Bobby Williams, who's a stuntman from Hollywood, very cool looking dude. And you listed, I think it was the 7 key elements to getting your life on track, which was air, sun, water.
We call them the seven
doctors. Right. Yes. Air, sun, water, earth, nutrition, exercise, and rest. The one that I was surprised is not in there is relationship. I did say that. Air, sun, water, earth, nutrition, exercise.
Water, earth, exercise, nutrition.
And rest. But I'm surprised relationships are not in there because I think that's an essential.
Well, we wrote a book called Running with Nature, and we address relationship in that. But your relationship to each one of those things also influences the relationship in your life, because what we did is we took the doctors are related to actually something in nature. So relationships are created by the different things that you do in your life, and then you come together with somebody. And it's a good point, but we do. I
think
I think relationship is everything. We
are such social creatures, and we it's amazing how much better you feel sometimes, just even if it's a phone call, but how much better you feel interacting with people that you care about, that care about you.
It's difficult. It's difficult to put an exact enumeration or classification on every aspect of the way we think. You could certainly say these are a baseline things that one needs to just actually exist. There's a lot of little sub things that you can put in there too, to say, here's what I need to exist and be happy or be successful. But clearly, I wanted to take a step back and say on the subject that Ralph brought up twice, that I think that we're all in this together, this mental health thing, because we are in actuality one organism. There's a collective consciousness, whether you can feel it or not. And what we have to realize is that where yoga fails, where, the teachings of Patanjali, who was a great yoga teacher back then and is the basis of a lot of the yoga teachings that we understand today that are not really religious, we'd say what was missing is the conversation of where did all of this go wrong for us? Are we that imperfect as a species? And I think the answer is no. What I would say is that it's clear that we're an amazing animal with an incredible talent, which is we have intelligence and free will. And I think that what we've been looking at over the centuries is the damage that's caused in childhood. It's the childhood rearing practices that caused the problem in the first place. That had we actually have better practices, which, by the way, there have always been cultures in humanity that have the right child rearing practices, and the entire society, albeit small, 200, 300 people, they're all awake and they're all conscious throughout their lives. And you can see it in their reverence of nature, their respect of one another, compassion, nonviolence, understanding of consciousness. Meditation was just a way of life. It wasn't, hey, where are you going? I'm going off to meditate in the tent. No, you were meditating while you were hunting. You were in the moment. You were breathing. You were present. You were gratitude. And even through negative feelings, which have to happen because bad shit happens on the planet, you don't really break from that open, conscious feeling. You process. And so what we can say is that my father, your grandfather, Ralph, your father, us, we all have this baggage of childhood experiences that distract us, that create anxiety, that are the narratives that we create in our head. They're the things that confuse us to the truth that's actually happening. And it's not to be replaced with spiritual principles. It's a very straightforward, mechanical path. Yes, please.
You for a
Thank
second?
God.
Because what you're saying is profound, but thank God, sorry.
He's right. You know what? Once I start going, I can't stop. I can't stop.
No,
I by the way, I texted our producer 3 minutes ago. Jesus Christ.
What you're saying is important, but not but. It's and.
No, I would go with the but.
Because
He doesn't like me. He doesn't like me. Let's
our
face it.
childhood, our history, we all come from different stories. It's why I have a foundation called Mariel Hemingway Foundation, which is for mental health. But part of it, the beginning of getting balanced and healthy, and you can't have right childhood upbringing or patterns or whatever you were saying, you can't have them until you've understood what your family has gone through. You have to be able to dig in to the patterns that were brought in from their father, my grandfather's father, and how those patterns keep repeating themselves. And until you understand those repetitive patterns, you can't create healthy, balanced, even if you give that to your children. There has to be an understanding of the history, because genetically we pull those things through. So you have to undo them in order to redo for your children, having right practices.
And by the way, not only
and
that,
I don't even like calling them right practices. I like just calling
How
them
about
practices.
skillful? How about skillful and unskillful?
not only what you're saying, you could do all the prep in the world, and then along comes fucking social media and Instagram and public shaming and all that shit. You could have done the best job in the world, and then that could get undone, as it's been proven now pretty substantively that Instagram and all these are doing so much harm.
I think there also needs to be an education for kids on how social media is not a real thing.
Right. You know what I think it should be, by the way? You can't have an anonymous account on social media. That answers the question. Your every account needs to be linked to an actual human being that has accountability, and then getting rid of those fake thousands of accounts that everyone has that bombard people. If you knew your account was attached to your real name and who you are, it would get rid of 80% of it.
I don't want to diffuse the main point of what I was trying to say, which is, number one, there's no way that any of us will have a perfect childhood. We can't. No one's perfect. Some people don't have terrible childhoods. They just have instances, cause and effect, that creates a certain way of being. And so what I was trying to get to, and I took too long, I'm sorry.
And howdy.
Okay. Is that the journey for us collectively is to help humanity understand how we're supposed to do this. The foundation is obviously love, nurturance, touch, connection, concern, the basic stuff.
The only real way to do that is by you having your practice. He has his practice. Yes. I have my practice. The only way that the collective works is that you show by example. It's not about, I'm going to go teach somebody something.
Well, don't we have to teach it the way we teach yoga?
Show up being the best person that you can be, whether that's flawed or not, and then hopefully be an example to your children.
You got to still teach it.
That's how the collective learns. We don't learn by telling. We learn by showing.
You learn by example.
I agree with that. What you're saying is that once something comes into the collective, like someone has a thought that airplanes should be a thing and I should invent them, it's in the collective now, and suddenly it's all over the place. And I get that.
Right.
But you have to keep in mind how all this works. There's a thing called impressions and branding. The thought of aviation came from a previous thing that the person saw. And so I think it's still important, just the way we learned yoga. You don't know all the asanas because they came to you in a meditation. Someone showed them to you. You saw them in a class. You see them in books. I still think there's an important part of sharing and teaching, and of course, living by example.
Right, and ideally finding a teacher that's more succinct than Marcus.
I don't disagree with you. I think everybody has to learn something, but it has to be their choice to get there.
Of course.
So the collective is, you watch somebody that influenced your life and you went, oh, I like what they're doing. What are they doing? They dig deeper, and then they go to a class and they learn how to meditate, or they eat differently because they see. But my point is, you can't, I've been on the planet for a long time now. You can't change other people. They have to want to change themselves.
You can certainly influence. You can influence people.
Yeah, but they want. Let me ask you this:
we do all the time.
You can't change them. You can't change them. You can only change yourself.
Absolutely.
And by changing yourself and becoming the best person that you can be, that has a tremendous influence. Just like you were saying, I don't think we're arguing here. I think it's just a matter of semantics.
I
think the approach is also different. In your grandfather's era, they didn't even have language for childhood issues. There was no such thing.
Right. I mean, even now, like nowadays, all things about suicide and all things about mental health and all things that they're becoming far more acceptable that there are issues that need to be discussed. There used to be like, oh, it's just something that gets swept under the rug. Like John, is not here anymore, whatever. But instead of whatever, which is a big thing. So
my generation was in denial. We knew that stuff was happening, but so
was my parents never talked about. My sister is schizophrenic, and they never talked about it, and they wouldn't send her to therapy because my mother was so terrified that somebody, in our town would know.
Yeah, my uncle, same thing. They used to tell me he had a sleeping disorder. They didn't want to tell. They did. He's just an insomniac, is what they told us, and we didn't find out till years later. Oh, he had real mental problems. They just hid it from us.
Yeah. No, I mean, and we come. So everybody says nobody wants to talk about it. I mean, we've come a long way. We do talk about it, and the great news is that there's solutions out there through all that we're talking about. There's solutions that bleed into each other and combined with Western ideas and whatevers and philosophy.
Very positive. We're making positive progress now. Let's hope that we don't run out of oxygen and water before we figure it all out.
We are definitely going to run out of water. That I know for sure. Let me ask you this question. Do you remember the aha moment or the person that guided you to saying, oh, maybe meditation or yoga is for me? Like, where did you find that out?
I started doing yoga. I was pregnant with my first daughter. So that was 34 years ago. And I'd done yoga before. So I've been doing yoga for about 40 years, but meditation came because I was pregnant and I was trying to do all the right things, whatever. But, and it sent me down such an incredible, I've been to India, I've chanted, I've been in sweat lodges, I've done primal screams, I've meditated for 2 days, without getting up. It was horrible. I mean, I've done a lot of stuff, and it's no accomplishment, but what it did is it made me realize that all the answers, and it took me a long time to get there, all the answers lay within me, for me, right? Because I was the big girl, the person who reached out to every doctor and guru and this person and that person, because I was convinced that everybody else knew what was right for me except me. Until meditation, it took a long time. The reveal was, oh shit, I'm my best teacher. I'm my best doctor. I'm my best. Now, it didn't mean that I didn't need help. It didn't mean that I didn't go to classes. It didn't mean anything. It just meant, oh, I actually, in my stillness, get answers for what's right for me. And that's why it's a complicated thing, because the journey of all of our lives is so individual and specific, and yet so connected to everyone else. So it's an interesting journey, but I don't know. I guess the aha happened in my pregnancy, in answer to your question.
And then the other thing I always think is interesting is that, when you talk about people that are such artistic, legendary people like your grandfather, if they found that stillness and that mindfulness early on, maybe their creative side would have never come out. Maybe that would have never happened. You don't know the answer to that. There's no way to know. Most artists are tortured artists.
I actually want to say that I know the creativity would have been there. I think that was his fear. I think that he thought that he had to live this messed up life of drinking too much and living on the edge, because I think he thought that that's what gave him this creativity.
Right.
And my feeling is, and this is just a feeling and it's just a perception, is just that the more I go deep into a spiritual life or whatever that means, but the more connected with nature, the more that I feel balanced, that I actually like myself, all of these things, the more I realize I'm more creative. So I know that the answer is that is always,
right.
He was never not Ernest Hemingway. It's just he probably would have been less tortured.
Right. Yeah. Like it's such a shitty. Go ahead, Marcus.
I was going to say is that, the alcohol, especially for that era where alcohol, understanding of alcoholism was much different. Alcohol was a way for him or anyone, I'm sober 36 years, to relax and push back anxiety.
Right.
And so when you do that,
covering pain.
Right.
He was covering pain. He was, see, the thing is, what people didn't realize, my grandfather was what they used to call manic depressive, they now call bipolar. I'm sure he was bipolar. They were giving him, electric shock treatment towards the end of his life. And but without that understanding, and you're in that kind of deep depression and fear that you can't write or whatever the fears are, he was self-medicating. That's what, because he didn't know anything else to do.
Yeah.
And the more you do that, as addiction is, it takes hold of you. But it wasn't a generation I'm going to go to AA.
Right.
How did fame throughout your life either distract you or amplify your ability to wake up your mind?
I think because my grandfather was always a celebrity since I was born. So that was kind of always there. So I didn't know a different kind of life. I didn't know what it was like to be Mariel Smith. I knew always what it was like to be Mariel Hemingway, but I wasn't a celebrity as a kid. But I think that, I don't know. I think that celebrities it's kind of like social media. It's kind of ridiculous. I'm grateful that people are interested in things that I do, if I do them or whatever. And I think it's an opportunity to share knowledge that I've gotten over the years. I think celebrity can be a tool that can be very useful if used properly. I think it's like anything else. If you go on a social media platform and you lie about everything in your life or whatever, I don't know. I just think you can do it well or you can do it shitty.
Right. Well, that leads me to the question about your foundation, which is you partnered up with a company called Optum. Am I right about that?
Yes, Optum Health is a I guess it's an insurance company, but they're actually worldwide. But I partnered with Optum Idaho,
right.
And because I'm an Idaho girl and this is my home state, and they are like, we want to help you bring this out. I just started the foundation recently because I speak all around the country and in Canada on mental health. And I've seen some really great organizations in my travels and speaking for them. And I thought I want to create a foundation that doesn't replace those foundations, but actually guides people to different foundations wherever they are in the world that are making a difference, that are doing right things. And you'll appreciate this, I think, both of you, because a lot of the really great foundations are looking at their life as a whole. Because I really believe that mental health is, and I said this before, is a combination of everything that you do. The rituals that you create, meditation, food, exercise, water, the 7 doctors, whatever it is. Those things are really important. And the organizations that are really making a difference in people's mental health are the ones that are looking at their life as a whole, and even looking at their stories and where they came from and their genetics and all of it, so that you can put that all in and go, hey, but I wanted a foundation where you could say, hey, I'm in Oklahoma and I don't know where to go. And I'd like to be that resource that says, they've got a great organization here. And then we want to do an online thing because especially for kids, because I believe that kids are so at risk because of social media, because of COVID and not being able to be social. It's just bizarre times we live in. So kids need a lot of help. So we need to create an app where people, can access,
get their information immediately if they need it.
Get your information, but also have a hotline, somebody to talk to, that they feel safe with.
Right. And also, just a couple other things is that up until now, the closest I ever was to a Hemingway were the cats in Key West.
I'm so surprised. I have lots of cats, and my cat usually sits on my lap.
That's a thing, right? They're like the 5-toed cats are somehow related to you. Yeah. It's so
I
crazy.
mean, if you go to Key West, there's so many 5-toed cats, and they all say they were my grandfather's. But meanwhile, everybody in Key West has a litter of kittens, and they throw the kittens over the fence and know that the Hemingway house will take care of them. So I'm not sure that they're all ancestors.
Right. At this point, probably not, right? And you could follow you everywhere at Mariel Hemingway. And you mentioned your Mariel Hemingway Foundation, your book that came out a few years ago, which is a memoir, Out Came the Sun. Anything else you want to plug before we wrap this up?
No, I'm producing my grandfather's book, A Movable Feast. I'm producing another couple of shows, and life is good.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, I watch enough of you and your life partner together. It looks like you two are super happy together, which is great.
Oh yeah, we're doing amazing things together. We want to do a lifestyle show, not dissimilar to you guys, only male female.
Yeah, and also him being really looking like a badass, and me looking like I do.
No, he's a badass. You look pretty good, but he's scary.
He's a stunt man. He's a badass. What are you gonna fucking do? I've never been that cool in my life. What are you gonna do? All right, follow me everywhere at I Am Ralph Sutton. My other podcast, the SDR Show, comes out twice a week, every Wednesday and Saturday, streaming live. Mark, is anything you want to add before we say thank you to Mariel?
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to headstands.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much for being a part of the GSP, the Good Sugar Podcast, and we'll see you next time on GSP. Thank you so much for taking the time.